Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we will be celebrating the end of the year by creating lots of rich layers in our journal. So this is one of my favourite techniques, and it's probably been my favourite technique from the entire year. So I thought it was only fitting that on the last day of the year that this is the video I put up. And it combines a lot of the techniques that I do regularly. This is inspired by a wonderful artist called Sarah Trump. She goes by Wondertrumpet on Instagram and YouTube. She creates these fabulous, whimsical creatures. They kind of remind me of the Little Raven ink creatures as well. They're really simple to draw, but for me they just hold so much emotion and say a lot without saying very much. So it's something that really appeals to me. And I know it won't appeal to everyone. Some people think it looks really, really dark, but it's something that I have really, really enjoyed doing and felt very accomplished by sort of creating them, which I know sounds horrible, but yeah, they just bring me so much joy looking at the finished pages. So that's where we're going today. So we're starting off. I do apologise for the very, very crooked video. That's terrible. We're starting off by painting the background green because, again, I've been really trying to go out of my comfort zone and use some colours I don't usually use. So I'm starting off with green, and then I'm going in with some collage papers. So gel prints, transparent papers, the Tim Holtz collage papers, and I'm trying to be restrained, funnily enough, by not collaging the entire page, but by actually, you know, leaving some gaps and some bits and pieces, because I know I want to do some stuff in the background. I don't want the whole page finished. And it's to create beautiful textures and layers on the page. I'm also using the Finnabair liquid acrylics. So I've got some transparent colour on the page. So that's the magenta, the crimson and the turquoise, and again drying off in between. So just sort of colouring over to blend those colours together and to blend the two pages together. So this page in itself goes through a lot of transitions. Some bits I really, really loved. Some bits I thought, oh, why did you do that? But then I kept working on it, which again I suppose is a metaphor for how we live life. You know, we do stuff and think, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that, but let's keep going, let's try again. Which is where the quote in the end for this page comes from, about how we sort of approach our day-to-day life and you know, we keep going. So I had that beautiful background, which I really liked, and then I did this. I ended up putting some Payne's Grey, and I thought I'd be brave and I'd use a scraper to scrape across, which I don't usually do. And it gave me some really interesting techniques and textures on the page. But, you know, it was suddenly went from that beautiful sort of glow across the page to being something very, very dark. So I wanted to counter that by putting some white or some different colours on the page. So this is a mask stencil from Scrap FX, which is it's basically don't waste one moment, and then I can't read the rest. I'm really struck. When I first got this mask, I had to print it out about 4 or 5 times so I could actually read what was on it, but I really like the script of it. So but it is about not wasting one moment and living life to the fullest. So I'm using a metallic paint from Golden with a little bit of white mixed into it to make it a little bit more cloudy, and just sort of spreading it about the page. Now I really didn't like it with the white in it, so I on this side went in with just the pure gold, or it's actually called Inference Bronze colour, and it's like liquid gold. It's amazing. And because I had some left over on my sponge, I decided to spread it around the page, and you can see by just doing that it's added some lightness to the page. It's sort of covered over the black, blended it in together, and just adding some difference to the page. So now I'm going in with some dark colour again, because obviously, you know, you have to have dark colours. I'm a worry some days. And I'm using one of my favourite stencils. Again, you have seen me use this stencil a lot this year. It's just been such a versatile stencil, and it's been one of my favourites. I've just used it lots and lots. So I haven't cleaned my sponge, so you can see that while it's got that darkness on it, it's also got those flecks of gold through it as well. And that's sort of adding to the overall image of the page. So I'm just sort of spreading that out around. You can see while it is quite dark, the paint spread out quite a lot, and I'm using every scrap of paint on the sponge. So I've got some really light sort of almost ghost prints of that coming up through. This is where I decided I got a bit too heavy-handed with the black, so I decided to go in with the white paint and colour over the top and sort of a random pattern across the page. And this is sort of giving a grounding feature to the page. I'm being a little bit, while it's going across in a horizontal line, I'm making it sort of wider and shorter in different places, which is easy to do with a stencil like that. I also, because I had the extra white on the page, I'm going back in and scraping that across the page, which again I hated, so I'm wiping it off. This is a big stencil, crackle stencil from Darkroom Doors, and I ended up with some texture on the page. Now that was too white for me. You know my struggle with white, so you know I'm going to need to get rid of that in some way, shape or form. So I do. So I get out my neon paints, and I actually loved this because what happened was, because they're translucent like I've talked about before, it's gone onto the white and recolored the white. So while I've got that beautiful light spot across my page, it's got those neon colours trapped in it. I've also put a little bit more of the turquoise back on because I really loved those turquoise colours and the magenta colours I had in the background, and I got rid of them. So I'm going back in now and recolouring it. So I've got those colours I originally had on the page, and I really love how it turned out in the end. This sort of technique really reminds me of sort of the, what do you call it, graffiti sort of walls and so on you get with the peeled paint and the posters in the background and so on. So you've got all that interest happening in the background. You can sort of see through the layers, but you don't really know what the entire layer is. So you've just got those interesting things happening. So this creature, this figure, is the one that's inspired by Sarah Trump. And I'm using the three colours, the yellow, the green and the red. I'm not cleaning my paintbrush in between, and I'm mixing the colours as I go along. The colours I'm using are from Paper Artsy. They're their fresco chalk paints. And the reason I'm using those and not the Dina Wakley's, which I usually use and I love dearly, is because they are super, super matte paint. So I can use some colour pencil over the top, which again is something I'm really enjoying, and a technique I learned at a class with Tracy Scott this year, and it's a technique that I've been really loving. So as I said at the beginning, this video is all about my favourite things. It's a really good summary of what I've done this year and what I've really loved about this year. So I'm going in, being really haphazard with my paint, sort of just slapping it on, making sure I'm happy with it. You can see that the paint is quite translucent, and that's okay because I'm going to be colouring over the top. So I'm going in with some darker greens and mixing them up with the greens and reds, using the going to say complementary colours, opposite colours to use as shadows and so on. So the red sort of acting as the shadow on the page. When I went to art school, we did portraits like this, and I didn't at that stage really understand why you would do that, but now I see the point to it. So it's only taken me 15 years to get there and to actually start using it in practice, but you know, eventually you learn how things work. So I'm going in with white paint on the eyes. Usually when I do eyes, I tend to use my white paint pens, but again, because I know I'm using colour pencil with this, I want to have something with tooth in it, and the paint pens are just a little bit plasticky, when you put them down to do this. And if I wasn't doing anything else, wasn't doing any shading over them, it's perfectly fine. But because I know I want to draw these in, I just wanted to have something that had a little bit more teeth to it. So again, you can see here, I'm not cleaning off my paintbrush in between mixing the colors. And that's a really handy tip if you're not brilliant at shading or, you know, mixing colors. Let the paint do it naturally for you. It's a technique I use quite regularly because it works, and you know, I'd need to have a clean tub of water with me at any stage, and that's never usually the case. So it's an interesting way to get mixed colors. May not work for everyone, but particularly if you know you're going to do something over the top, like you're going to add color pencil, you're going to add some shading with something else over the top, it's a great way to get some color blending underneath without really having to think about it. So once I've mapped out my original my face and dried it off, I'm now going to go in with the paint for the eyes. And again, this is just a base coat. So everything you are seeing here is a base coat of what I'm doing. Then I'm going to put the colour pencil over the top. And I do have to apologise now before I forget, because I was having so much fun doing this and got so lost in time that my poor video battery actually died. And it died just as I was going to start doing the colour pencil. So you missed me doing my colour pencil shading. But I will have videos up in the future that you'll see sort of how I do that, and you've sort of seen in some of my past videos how I do that, but you don't miss out on anything else, so I do apologise for that up front, but unfortunately I can't go back in time and redo it for you. So I'm going in and I've painted the body of the person black. And I've used just a black gesso to do that, and I'm putting on some wings as well. So this is a Stamperia stencil with wings, and I'm just turning it around so I can get sort of the wing shape in, because it was where I'd drawn the figure, it was a little bit awkward. I also decided that just having that one wing on the page looked a bit funny, so I decided that I'd go back and put in a double wing. So I just sort of layered it up and put in two wings. And that gave me a little bit of room on the opposite page to put in a wing behind the shoulder as well. So again, it's not realistic obviously, but it just sort of gives you the impression of what's going on. And I just kind of liked having this creature as, you know, someone sitting on your shoulder telling you the good and bad stuff that's going on. You also would have noticed that I went back with the body and I'd rubbed off some of the black paint, and I decided to go back in and just with a sponge with a little bit of paint that I had left on it to dull that down a little bit so it wasn't so obvious having those big dots of colour in the middle. Please excuse my head. You can see the shading on the face now, so I just used a mixture of prismacolor pencils in the same sort of shades that I used in the paint in the background, and a Stabilo oil pencil to give the darker lines. And with a white Stabilo pencil, I just drew out some wiggly lines on my body to write in my quote. So the whole quote sort of says, you'll have good days, overwhelming days, too tired days, I'm awesome days, I can't go on days, and you will yet you will still get things done, I think it says, and that's you'll still show up, and that's something to celebrate. And I just thought that was a really great way, a great reminder to have into my page that, you know, everyone has those days. I have those days. Everyone has those days that you're sort of working with, and it's really important to celebrate the great days, and you know that you know celebrate the fact that even if you're having a really awful day, that you're still going on and you're still doing everything, and that's really important. I really struggled just leaving it with that quote in the page. I really wanted to put something in the top left hand corner, but I am so glad I didn't, because I just absolutely adore the overall piece and how balanced it sort of went together. So this is an absolute joy to create, and sort of summarized all the stuff that I've done this year. I just wanted to personally say thank you so much to everyone who has supported this channel this year and has watched and has commented and has liked and has, you know, contacted me in my Facebook group and shown me stuff that you've been doing. It's been an absolute pleasure to see all your stuff. Thank you so much for supporting me, and I'm really looking forward to 2020 and all the stuff that we've got planned for next year. Have a great new year, and I hope I will see you in 2020. Bye for now.